This is California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We're in Sacramento today, and we are joined by Dave Jones. He is the insurance commissioner for the state of California, running for re-election. That election will be held in November. Also on the ballot will be something called Proposition 45. Before we get to Prop 45, I want to talk about its, grandfather, I guess you could say, Prop 103. Describe Prop 103 and how it impacts health insurance.
Proposition 103 has saved Californians tens of billions of dollars since it was first enacted in 1988 by the voters. It gives the insurance commissioner the ability to reject excessive rate hikes for auto insurance, homeowners insurance, all property and casualty insurance. But oddly, it does not cover health or HMO insurance products.
But doesn't it cover a small part of health and HMO? I've dealt with it personally where sometimes if there's an issue, you go to the insurance commissioner, and sometimes if there's an issue, you go to the Department of, is it managed care or whatever it may be?
Sadly, there is no authority in the Federal Affordable Care Act or state law to give either the Department of Insurance or Department of Managed Health Care the authority to regulate health insurance or HMO rates.
Okay.
So it doesn't exist, and it's a big missing piece of the Affordable Care Act, which the President and Dianne Feinstein and other Democratic leaders tried to include in the Affordable Care Act, but the health insurers blocked them. So we're one of a minority of states that does not have this authority. 35 other states have given their insurance commissioner the authority to reject excessive health insurance rate hikes, but not California so far.
So that is what we will see with Prop 45. It's looking to bring in that arguably missing piece under the insurance commissioner. There's no doubt that we're already hearing noise on both sides. Talk to us about why you are a supporter of Prop 45.
Proposition 45 fills a big missing piece of the Affordable Care Act. It would give the insurance commissioner the authority to reject excessive health insurance rate hikes. It also requires the health insurers and HMOs to justify their rates, to get prior approval before they raise the rates. And we've seen rates go up over the last 10 years over 150%, many times the rate of inflation. And the rates are still going up, even with the Affordable Care Act. In fact, we released an analysis last week that showed between 2014 and 2013, on average, with variations for age and geographic location, rates went up 22 to 88% on individuals in California. And that's after the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. So rates continue to climb, and it continues to be a pressing need.
I thought Comm'r California issued a report which said that rates went up 4.5%.
That was for 2015, and the reason why the health insurers have pulled back a bit on their double-digit rate increases is because Proposition 45 is on the ballot. The last thing they want to do is raise rates yet again, upset the voters, and have them turn out at the polls in November. Now, I'm confident voters understand that this is just the health insurers pushing the pause button for a moment, and they understand as well that unless we pass Proposition 45, we're going to continue to see double-digit rate increases off into the future.
Even with Comm'r California, even with the Affordable Care Act?
That's right, yes, because Comm'r California, while it's doing a great job expanding coverage, simply does not have the bargaining position, no one does, to get better rates. And the best exemplar of this is the fact that in Comm'r California, we now have 10 health insurers, only 4 of which are statewide: Anthem Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Kaiser, and Health Net. And those 4 now control 94% of the individual market in Comm'r California. Their market position has gotten even greater in the last couple of years. And as a result, they can dictate price. Now, they've pushed the pause button for 2015 because they didn't want to cause the kind of outcry that Anthem Blue Cross caused in 2009 when it raised rates 39% and drove the Affordable Care Act across the finish line. So to avoid that, they pushed the pause button for 2015. But we know, unless Proposition 45 passes, they're going to continue to raise rates into the future because they can. There's no restraint.
When we come back, I want to talk more about the Affordable Care Act and whether you believe it's working or still faces some challenges in the state of California. For our viewers on HLN, thank you so much for joining us. For our other viewers, we'll be right back with Dave Jones. So, Mr. Commissioner, let's talk about the Affordable Care Act. If you look at the numbers, it would appear that in the state of California, the ACA is working. Uninsured rates went from 22% in California to 11%. Am I reading the statistics correctly?
Yes, there's no question that in terms of many of the objectives of the Act, expanding coverage, getting people into Medi-Cal, making sure that health insurers and HMOs can no longer discriminate against you due to pre-existing condition, establishing new benefit mandates, all of those positive things, we have successfully implemented here in California. But the big missing piece is the absence of any authority to deal with the rate hikes, and that's the part that we're going to have to fill through Proposition 45. But the rest of the act is going reasonably well. Now, that's not to say it's not been without its challenges. There have been stories about people who can't actually access a physician that they thought they could access because the network provider lists were inaccurate. We know that they have narrowed the networks dramatically, many health insurers. So these are the sorts of issues that we're going to continue to have to address and seek to improve. But I think those are issues that we can resolve. The rate piece doesn't get resolved unless the voters enact Proposition 45.
Will Prop 45 address the number of insurers in covered California, for example?
No, it doesn't. But it's also entirely consistent with covered California and the Affordable Care Act, because it's something that the President, Senator Feinstein, and other leaders tried to get into the Affordable Care Act. We looked very carefully at Covered California's timelines. We've looked at timelines under Proposition 45. We're confident the two can work consistently with each other. And in those states where you have an exchange, like a Covered California, and the Commissioner has rate regulation authority, you can get better results than just with the exchange alone.
How does Covered California interact with the Insurance Commissioner, either now or in a post-Prop 45 world?
Well, I think in both cases we've worked very closely together. We were responsible for issuing regulations to enact many of the market reforms. We've worked closely with Covered California to review the policy forms of the health insurers when they're filed to make sure they're compliant with the law, to get that work done in time for Covered California then to offer those products through Covered California. I license all of the agents and brokers who played an enormous role in signing people up for health insurance. One of the untold stories is the tremendous role that health insurance agents and brokers played. The majority of them, of people signed up in Covered California, were signed up through agents and brokers, and we licensed those, and we played a big role in making sure that they were ready to perform that task.
I want to get a sense from you as to why California is seen as kind of a beacon of light in terms of the success of the Affordable Care Act. You know, when you read national news, it seems like California and Kentucky, of all places, are the two states that one points to say, this is where the Affordable Care Act really worked well. What's your analysis as to why the ACA worked so well in California? If you want to talk about Kentucky, you can, but let's talk about California.
I think one of the key ingredients is a consensus amongst all leaders in California about the importance of doing this, at least those of us that are in constitutional offices, myself, the governor, obviously the administration in Washington, D.C., which has been a big partner, the departments that are working with us in implementing this. I mean, there's been a consensus about doing this and taking advantage of all of the facets of it. So some states, for example, decided not to expand their Medicaid programs. Not California. We expanded our Medicaid program called Medi-Cal, and that has resulted in an additional 1.8 to 1.9 million uninsured people signing up. That's good news for them. It's also good news for the rest of us that have health insurance, because it'll stop some of the cost shifting that occurs when they were being seen in hospital emergency rooms, and those costs shifted to the rest of us.
Although one could argue the expansion was too successful because, as you know, the legislators needed to find more money to cover the expansion for those that would have been covered pre-Obamacare, because those that would have been covered, the state and feds have to split the cost. It's the new ones where the feds will take 100%. Am I saying that correctly?
You are. The new enrollees who are eligible because of changes in the law that allow single adults to be eligible for Medicaid if they're poor, that's the 1.8, 1.9. The feds pick up 100% of that cost for the first couple of years, and then over time it drops to 90%, which is a great deal. But there has been a phenomenon where people who were previously eligible but didn't sign up have now come in, and that's required some additional appropriations. But at the end of the day, I think the benefit of getting them health insurance outweighs those costs, because those people, too, were getting health care. They were just getting it at the most expensive point, which is in the emergency room, and then those costs get shifted to the rest of us. It's estimated that per family we pay $1,400 in additional premium for health insurance due to the cost shifting of the uninsured to us.
His name is Dave Jones. He is the Insurance Commissioner for the great state of California. He is running for re-election. That election will be held in November. My name is Brad Pomerance, and this is California Edition.